Utah has added another quarterback this fall. Let's discuss Utah's quarterback tactics and a big addition to the men's basketball team on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments as well as on social media, where you can follow our show on X at Locked On Utes. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces today. My name is JT Wistricll, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. And on today's show, we got to be talking about some men's basketball additions. The big one being, of course, Ezra Ausar, who's coming over with Utah. Utah baseball concluding their season. But got to start with the new news about Utah's quarterback room. If you guys remember a few weeks back, I said that I liked where Utah's quarterback room was at. I felt like Cam Rising was obviously a really good starter. We've talked about Cam a lot on this show. I thought Brandon Rose, I liked him as the backup quarterback, and maybe even if Isaac Wilson had beat him out, I like that 2-3 punch. I feel like that's three really quality quarterbacks, and I thought Patari was a fine fourth quarterback. Utah's proven they can win games, Luke Patari. Yes, it was a very ugly game against Colorado, but when you're on your four-string quarterback, what do you kind of expect for the most important position on the field anyways, too, right? So I thought Utah's quarterback room was fine. Seems like the Utah coaching staff feels otherwise. They've added Sam Heward, and then today added Dallen Engemann, a quarterback who actually went to high school at Timpview. He's a 6'1", 195-pound. He'll be a junior. He had 2 years that he played down at Santa Ana College, played it at the JUCO level, and he's had a lot of success over there, and now he's coming up to Utah. He's 6'1", 195, all-conference quarterback, 14-2 overall. His record, 41 passing touchdowns over the past two seasons. You look at the 22-23 season, completed 63% of his passes for 1,552 yards and had 16 touchdowns, just 8 interceptions. Then you look at what he did in 23-24. You had 50% completion percentage, 2,163 yards, averaged 196 yards per game, 8 yards a throw, 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions overall. So like I said, overall 41 touchdowns and 19 interceptions too. So what are my thoughts on this addition? Well, I find it very interesting. I do, because I look at this and I'm like, number one, if you want to just make your quarterback room stronger, that's where I get it from. If depending on where Engemann adds into the equation, I think he's a very good fourth to fifth quarterback. I think it's going to be hard. I think he's going to be fifth. I think it's going to be hard for him to pass a Heward, a Rose, a Wilson at this point in the playbook and everything, but you never know. Either way, this is a very interesting addition, though, right? You're talking about a guy in Engemann who, when you turn on the tape, look, it looks really good. I mean, he's got a pretty good arm, picks defenses apart, good timing, can escape the pocket, make throws off schedule. His YouTube highlight video actually kind of breaks down his different types of throws, which I'm sure something a lot of coaches found useful when recruiting him. But I mean, everything looks really good at his level. But there are some stats that I mentioned of where I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes at Utah. Obviously, 19 interceptions in two seasons, not exactly ideal. 11 interceptions last year, only averaging 6 to 8 yards a throw between the two seasons. Also not unreal at the same time. You don't know what the offense asked of him and things of that occasion, but those are just numbers when you look at it without having gone through and watched every game that he's played. They don't blow me away. So there's potential based on what's on tape. I see potential to be really good, but it's a big step up in competition, obviously, going to and playing these Big 12 defenses versus what Engemann's been used to. So I think this is a very intriguing addition, but I just find it so fascinating, the Utah quarterback room that's being assembled. You look in next spring, this means we could have Sam Heward, Isaac Wilson, Brandon Rose, and Luke Patari all vying, or sorry, not Patari. He's be out of eligibility and obviously not vying for this job. But there are legitimately right now 4 guys, and obviously it's not even factoring in the freshman recruits this team will add, like a Becker, that are going to be trying to compete for this job. It's lots of depth, so quarterback injury shouldn't be an issue this year. But man, I think if a lot of these guys don't win the job, we'll see them exit the program, because I'm sure a lot of these guys want to start and want to play and feel like they got a chance to do so at a really good Utah football team. So I like this addition. I think it's a very intriguing addition. And I'll also say this is going to be a topic on next week's show, because I had already planned everything out for today's show before the news dropped. Cam Rising actually has another year of eligibility because of a rule passed by the NCAA that says players that had to sit out the transfer season were given a year because of the transfer rules and how now you can transfer without penalty. If you transferred and were forced to sit out that back then, you could play now. Cam was actually forced to sit out the 2019 season because of the transfer rule. And now he is back at everything, and so he still has another year of eligibility if he wants to use it. Do I think Cam Rising is going to use it? No. I think he's going to have a really good year with Utah this fall, and then ride off into the sunset, setting a ton of Utah quarterback records. And that will be all she wrote for Cam Rising at the University of Utah. But I said we'll talk about it next week, because there's especially in the world of NIL and the money he could potentially make by staying in college. Obviously, the chance to start and win with this Utah team still, even next year. I'm not saying it's a 0% chance that Cam Rising leaves Utah after the season. I'd be surprised if he came back, but it'll still be worth discussing in the future. But yeah, just very interesting what's playing out in the quarterback room, right? We weren't at every practice, but we heard Isaac Wilson threw some interceptions. Brandon Rose, I thought he didn't get the greatest talent around him in the spring game, but he didn't look stellar either. Obviously, the coaching staff felt the need to add and upgrade the quarterback room. I think they said a few times, like, if they found the right guys, they would bring them in. They didn't feel like they absolutely needed to, and I didn't feel like that either. But now here comes Sam Heward. Now here comes Engemann as well. So it's a very intriguing room. How is it all going to shake out in fall camp? What's the quarterback depth chart going to end up be like? It's also worth mentioning, and I'm not talking about Engemann, that I think this is going to happen to him, but a lot of transfers obviously don't work out. So this is where Utah is doing a good job building up a good base for themselves. We see all across the country, high-profile transfers, high-profile recruits don't always work out. So that's where Utah has given themselves a large selection of guys that you got to imagine one of them is going to work out for this team and be the starting quarterback in the fall. I do feel comfortable saying this with the talent that Utah has added just in this room in general. I would be surprised if there's another quarterback who transfers in post Cam Rising to compete for the starting job. But obviously, if there's a quarterback of a high enough caliber with eligibility left, Utah would be crazy not to take him on. So that's just a crazy world we live in when it comes to transfer portal. And I just found this addition very fascinating, because this is a guy who's good. I thought he was pretty good. The chance to be good. If he was good at the JUCO level, we'll see what he can do at the Big 12 level. This is the type of guy who we'd want to play. He's obviously not going to play this year, so he'll take a red shirt. And then I guess go from there and see if he can win it in spring ball or what. It's just a lot of interesting moves where in years past, we knew it was, hey, is Jaquindon Jackson or Bryson Barnes the backup? Is Brandon Rose or Bryson Barnes the backup? Now there could be as many as 4 guys vying for that spots. And I think Engemann is at least going to have something to say about it. If you turn on his tape, he makes some impressive throws. Can he put it all together at the Power 4 level? That's what remains to be seen. But it's I like this quarterback room for Utah. I think it's as strong as it's been in a very long time in terms of the number of bodies that I feel that can go out there and execute the offense. So very interesting to see how it plays out in the Battle of Fall Camp in the depth chart, and even more so in spring ball next fall when all these guys are going to be looking to try and start. It's going to be one heck of a competition for us to cover on the show when we get to that point in the season. But before we talk about next football season and even the quarterback depth chart, got to talk about some additions made by the men's basketball team. Should say, I talked about doing originally a schedule like game-by-game prediction on today's show, shifting that to next week because of the JUCO quarterback news, because of that the team adding Engemann that came out. Wanted to discuss that on another episode, focus on this and more Utah transfer basketball news that we got to hit on. So switching sports to basketball in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you all about our great friends at Gametime. Gametime makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app, they actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in-price views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime truly takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can pick out any specific games or matchups you'd love to attend. There's all kind of fascinating deals you can get. There's last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. Those zone deals in particular, you can save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats. They also have that feature all in price that allows you to know exactly what kind of a total you're getting up front with no surprise fees at a checkout. You get a panoramic view even from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know what exactly you're looking for. low price guarantee. Well, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And Gametime ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. You can take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. It's capital LOCKEDONCOLLEGE with capital LO and then all of college capitalized for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEG for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Alrighty, let's keep talking transfer news because Utah landed Ezra Ausar, comes over from East Carolina. He was just a sophomore last year, so 2 years of eligibility remaining for the 6'8", 247-pound power forward. And you know what I love most about Ezra, which is something I've been talking about a lot when we talked about the men's basketball team recently? He averaged in double figures last year. Gabe Madsen was the only player joining or returning to this team, or even when they've added through the portal, that averaged double figures in scoring. Kind of a big thing if you want to win games. You need to have guys you can go to, and Ausar is one of those guys. Averaged 11 points a game last year, 4.7 rebounds, and assists per game, shot 51% from the field overall. He is not a three-point shooter. We can get that out of the way right away. But this is a guy who does a great job getting to the free throw line. He's not the greatest shooter from the charity stripe, but still 61%. If you get there a lot, you're going to have games where you make them, games where you're not, and hopefully that's something he can grow and develop on his game too. There are several games where he's like, hey, gets to the free throw line 11 times, make 7 of them. I'm absolutely good with that if that's the case. This is a guy who's had some big performances too. You look at him in the conference championship, the second round where he did against Tulsa, 28 points in a conference tournament game, 10 for 12 from the field overall, 8 for 12 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds in that game, also had 2 steals and 2 assists, and didn't even turn it over once. So that's the kind of player we're talking about in this situation. Now, that was his highest scoring game of the season. So you could say, was that a fluke? Maybe. But the fact that it came in a conference tournament game and he was only a sophomore last year leads me to believe it's more so a sign of what's to come. And I think this guy has a chance to be really special. The thing I like most about him is how relentless he is when it comes to attacking the rim. He puts his head down and he goes right at guys. He's seeking out contact, whether it's getting to the foul line or trying to finish through it. He finishes decently well around the rim. He's strong, can handle contact, got a little bit of a mid-range shot too, can attack off the dribble a little bit. Obviously moves okay off the ball too. Would love to see him as a guy who sets screens and rolls because he's got a little bit of that ability to play above the rim too. So Ezra is a guy that I think can be an addition for Craig Smith's team because I think he actually can and probably will start. Right now, I think the starting lineup will be something like Miro Little, Gabe Madsen, Keanu Dawes, then Ausar, then Lawson Lovering. I'm starting to like that more than I have in the past when we talked about Utah basketball, because what I say about this team is they have some pieces in where it's like, well, if things go right, maybe they could be decent, but they're still missing those powerful players. I think Ausar is a guy that could average above 11 points per game, even though he's making the jump from the American Conference all the way up now to the Big 12. Like, that's not going to be easy, but I think he's going to get the shots, the opportunity. I think Utah will put him in position to succeed. And Dawes and Ausar also, what do they accomplish? Something I was also really hoping Utah would do. It allows Utah to get more athletic, something I think is extremely important for this team. So I really think that's a big thing for this Utah squad. Getting more athletic, be able to guard on the perimeter better, longer wingspans, all the things of that nature that just help you win basketball games. The best teams usually can do those things. And the best teams, of course, also offer some shooting. That's what you have a Gabe and a Mason Madsen for. So I don't care as much that Ausar is not as much of a shooter. I think that Ezra can really be a guy that's one of the top players on this Utah men's basketball team. I think he has a chance to be their leading scorer. I would expect it to be Gabe Madsen. If you're telling me Ezra led the team in scoring, wouldn't fall out of my chair just because I like the flashes I've seen of him too. I think he'll benefit from some of the spacing that a Gabe and Mason can provide for him too. I'm sure it's something he's excited about moving up to Utah too. So really fired up about this get. And I think it could really mean big things for Craig Smith and co, just overall this team. This can be one of the guys that they look at going forward that helps them round it out. As I mentioned, helps them get more athletic, and you just needed more difference makers. So now it allows you to be a little more deeper, right? Because now maybe instead of starting Mason Madsen, he can come in and be the sixth man type of player for this Utah men's basketball team. So still needs some work done. Adding guards would be the biggest thing that I would mention. I still want to see this team find a guard that they can put together with Miro Little to push him a little bit more. And obviously Hunter Erickson's fine off the bench, but just still some things that this Utah basketball team needs to do. But it's coming together where you're looking around and you're like, okay, you got some shooting, got some athletes, got some size with guys like Lawson Lovering. Banking on the upside of Miro Little is still the thing where I'm like, get another guard, as I mentioned. But I think things are coming together for this Utah men's basketball team, and there's still plenty of guys left in the portal too. So they're not even close to done adding talent. But Ausar is the type of guy, when you're competing in the best college basketball conference in the country, at least regular season wise last year, you need to get more athletic. And Ausar helps them do that. And he's also going to be a guy they can go to and give them some timely buckets, as we saw in that big game against Tulsa. Had a couple of other standout performances last year too. It wasn't just the Tulsa one, although that was the biggest one. And yet also he's only a sophomore yet again. So shows he's got room to grow, right? You got to love 25 points he had in the game against SMU too. How about the 24 against UPST? So a guy who had some room to grow, got better throughout the season, used some opportunities, even in games against teams like Florida. How does he do against Power 4 competition? He had 14 points in that game. Overall was 5 of 11 from the field too. And this is a guy that I know is going to be active on the offensive glass. He had 19 rebounds in his final 2 games combined. He had 3 games on the season, which he had 10 rebounds overall. So just a guy who's going to continue to grow and get better. I think Craig Smith and his staff have the pieces in place to help him develop his game too. And really think Ezra's going to be one of the leading scorers on this team. So a great job by Craig Smith and co. And they got to continue to hit the recruiting portal hard. Obviously, the number 1 player in the nation, and they offered him earlier this week, so that'll be the big thing. And BYU's also going hard after him too. So is Kevin Young going to wing out there? Is the connection with Coach Lowe going to be enough? That'll be something that's fascinating to watch for this team, but that won't be something that factors in until 25. So this is a big get for 24, which in many ways is a make or break year for Craig Smith. Obviously, a large portion of the fan base is frustrated by the position the team is in. I would have loved to see them get to the NCAA tournament last year too. I still think they're making steps in the right direction, where Craig Smith has earned this season to prove what they can do. And I'm excited to see what they can do this fall, or fall, spring, winter, whatever you want to call it. Either way, going to be interesting to see what the men's basketball team does. But really like Ezra Ausar, this is a guy that had been rumored for a little bit. I think a couple people reported that. I can't remember their names off the top of my head, honestly, but I thought someone said a while ago, like, though he was definitely in the list of like the top places he could end up at as Utah, but there was lots of like, don't be surprised if Ezra ends up going here. And that ended up very well being the case. So good on Utah for getting a big time addition for their men's basketball team. Now, we'll talk more about men's basketball transfer portal here in the near future, but I want to close out today's show by talking about Utah baseball. The Utah baseball team recently wrapped up their season. Their final game was actually against Oregon. How about their final game was actually a win, but because they lost to USC 7-6 in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament in that pool play round, and then they won against Oregon, it wasn't enough for them to advance in the tournament. So disappointing ending there, but I mean overall, right? 33-22. They were 16-14 in conference. I know it's not great, but the Pac-12 can be tough too, right? 15-8 at home, 14-13 over on the road. And they were also 4-1 in neutral site games too. So this is a Utah baseball team that had some really strong moments throughout the season, right? If you look back at what they did over the season, they made incredible strides. Yeah, how about like the 400th? The victory for Utah against Oregon was actually the 400th career win for head coach Gary Henderson, right? How great is that? Shout out to Ryan Gallant of the Utah Athletic staff for throwing that statistic in there for us. But you look up and down of what this team was able to accomplish throughout the season, right? It was great to see guys like TJ Clarkson, Kai Robertson, who have been with this team for a long time, help be able to achieve things with this Utah team they hadn't before. The 33 wins matches the program's most since 2002, seeing an 11-game win improvement from 2023 on, right? So this is a baseball program that to me is headed in the right direction. And why is that big? Because you're going into the Big 12. So now it's like, okay, new conference opponents. You kind of do a little bit of a reset because of that. What's Utah also getting? Their own ballpark. So how is that going to factor into everything too, right? You're going to be able to have games on campus, have fans coming up to check it out, even more so just the traffic that comes in there too. I'm excited to see what the future of Utah baseball holds, and I think they did a lot to build on some momentum throughout the season. I've talked before on this show how great it was just to watch the Kai Roberts and the TJ Clarksons of the world, guys whose games I called back when I was a student at Utah, to see them excel and go on and have so much success this season. It was something I really enjoyed, and it was a really strong season. As a Utah team that at one point was atop the Pac-12 standings, right? They had that huge come from behind win against Oregon State, which was I think the biggest comeback in the Pac-12 in a long time. I don't think that was just a Utah thing too. I think that was an overall thing. So just an incredible run by this Utah baseball team this season and what they were able to accomplish. It was so fun to check out and see the growth that has happened over time for this program. I feel like they're trending in the right direction. A year or two, whatever it's supposed to be, away from the ballpark opening. I don't remember what the dates of it were off the top of my head, but really like the momentum, and it's going to be fun to see what they can do in the Big 12. Would have been awesome if they could have made a little run in the Pac-12 tournament, but unfortunately just went 1-1, but end the season with a win. That's always an encouraging thing too, and a season that will not be forgotten because of all of the record-setting things that this program was able to do. So hats off to the Utah baseball team on a very strong season in what was their second to last season inside the Bees Stadium. Still crazy everything they got going on there with Utah's push for the MLB, the new Bees ballpark opening in Daybreak. Lots happening at the University of Utah with the baseball program changing up. That's going to do it for our show today. But you know what's crazy? With Utah baseball ending, the 2023-2024 Utah athletics calendar concluded. There are no, one of you can add me in the comments if I'm missing someone. There is no Utah sport still going. So that means we've reached the end. And that means it's time to reflect and look back. So next week, we'll be doing some countdowns and stuff, talking about some of the stuff on the season, the best we saw for moments, all things of that nature. Also looking ahead, of course, to 2024-25, which figures to be a big year for the Utah football program. Make or break here for men's basketball. How will the women's basketball team perform without Alyssa Peely? So many fun storylines as we continue to talk about the school that I love to talk about, the University of Utah, and obviously all of you love, because you just spent 21 minutes on this Friday listening to me talk all things Utah athletics. It's something I love doing so much with you guys. Can't wait to continue to do it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Leave some questions too, whether it's me interacting with the comments or I want to get back to more Q&A stuff over the summer as well. Look forward to interacting with all of you guys more. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. And as always, go Utes.